Morning. Good afternoon. Sorry. Good afternoon. Okay. If you haven't been here last Sunday, you missed some good German chocolate. That was my little way to say thank you. Thank you for praying for me and my family. Thank you so much. My dad is, when I arrived, he was in a kind of critical situation. He was in emergency state, and because his blood was not flowing, right, his hands and feet were kind of like almost black. It was kind of difficult to see him in that situation, and I really believe that it was prayer that saved him. It was the church in Germany, so my home church, and also this church here. We all prayed a lot, and I want to thank you so much in behalf of our family, of my family. If you didn't have German chocolate yet in your life, or you? Okay. Okay. Really? Okay, come and see me next week. I bring you some German chocolate.
Thank you.
Okay, stop. Okay, no more. Okay. So if you really never had German chocolate, please come and see me after church, or send me a message or an email. I will make sure. Okay. Okay. I'll make sure you guys. I get some chocolate for you. If you have been here yesterday for the worship night, it was an amazing day, amazing night. Thank you for everyone who contributed to that. There was many things going on unseen. So those who came earlier, Orion, he came at 1 or 1:30 and started preparing food. And for the first time, we stayed within the budget. That's also amazing. It's not easy. Yeah. So let's give a big hand to everyone who were. Okay, please tell your neighbor. My favorite pizza is something. Yeah, my favorite pizza.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite pizza?
It's called it's Aurelio's Pizza in America. They make a super six. I really miss it. It's terrible.
We're gonna have barbecue.
What's your favorite? You're gonna cook?
Okay, my favorite pizza is special because there you have everything. I like it bigger, big fat. Okay, so later when we have pizza, just imagine your favorite pizza and take a bite. Okay, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for today. Thank you for this wonderful day. It's a day that we dedicate to you. It's a day where we come together to worship you as one body, as one church, together. Doesn't matter where we are from, it doesn't matter what our mother tongue is, it doesn't matter the cultural background. What matters is you, and that's why we're here. And we want to worship you, we want to love you more, we want to get to know more about you, and we want to serve one another like you served us. Help us to be a testimony of faith. May you fill us with your Holy Spirit, that we may see you, that we may listen to your voice, and that we may be changed and transformed from the inside out by your Holy Spirit. Thank you so much for everything that you have done. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, we are in Samuel, and today the scripture passage was very long, longer than normal, and I tend to go more to Dawn's direction. So usually my scripture passages were short, Dawn's were long, now mine are getting longer.
Our Dawn's going to get shorter.
And Dawn's are getting shorter. I get older, you get younger. Okay, we are with David. David was at that time very young. Yeah, young David. And last week we have seen that David was anointed. He was anointed as to be the next king, the coming king. But we still have to remember that David is a young boy at that time, maybe somewhere in his teens, teenager. And many years still have to pass until David is going to be king. More than that, King Saul is still alive. So as long as the present king is there, you can't be a king. Today we see how the Israelites, or the army of Israel, are on one side, and then we have the Philistine army on the other side. They were facing one another. And there was one man called Goliath, huge warrior. He was from Gath. Now the story of David and Goliath is one of the best known stories. I think most of us, we grew up with this story, right? We listened to the story, we read the story, we were watching this story and this fight. And I remember when I was a little boy, I saw a Korean manhwa, like animation, where a Korean David looked like Korean. He was facing Goliath, who also looked like a Korean. And he was swinging his sling and shot David, the Goliath. And yeah, so very dramatic, and I remember this very vividly. It was one of my favorite animation at that time. At that time, we didn't have like MP4 or CD. It was all on VHS. I don't know if you still know that. He's bad, and then something happened, and then you did it out, and you turn it again back, and yeah, there were some good times. Okay, now we are in a war between the Philistines and the Israelites, and because of whenever there's war, people have to go there. The king asked for sons to come. In this case, David, he had 7 older brothers, and the first 3 brothers, they had to join Saul when he was fighting against the Philistines. There were 2 vast armies assembled in Soko. Sounds like a Japanese name. It's in Judah. It's a little valley where they are, and there are 2 hills, or 2 little mountains. So we have one army on one mountain, or on one hill, and the other army on the other. And in between, there's a valley. So both armies could see exactly what was going on in the middle, in the valley, and they could hear everything that was spoken. Maybe you've seen the movie Troy. So when I prepared this sermon yesterday, I watched part of it again. I like this movie. Troy, and also the movie 300. I didn't watch that yesterday, only Troy. And there you can see that the Greek, they didn't have like one big state, they had city-states. So one city, and they had one king in the city, and there was like a little city-state. But when it came to war, these city-states combined. They joined forces against another army. So that's what's happening here too with the Philistines. You have 5 city-states in today's Palestine at that time. And like in 300, there's one city-state that's stronger than all the others, so they take lead. In 300 it was the Spartans. And the Spartans at that time, they were like the elite, the Delta Force of the Greek. And then you have the Athens, the Corinthians, and so on. Here it was the Gath, or Gathians, people from Gath. The champion of them was Goliath. He was the strongest and the most terrifying soldier of the Philistines. And he steps up. He steps forward and he asks for a one-on-one battle, or one-on-one fight. In verse 9 he says, if he is able to fight and kill me, so whoever comes, we will become your subjects, but if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us. That reminds me of Achilles and Hector when they were fighting in front of all. And this fight actually determines usually how the big fight is going to end. Goliath was a person, a warrior who grew up as a soldier. He fought many battles, and he was confident that he would win against anyone, whoever would come against him. So he stands there and he's shouting to the whole Israelite army for 40 days, every morning and every evening. So they hear this, and no one dares to step up. Now what happens is, when they stay for 40 days in this area, facing one another, they are asking for supplies. They need to be resupplied, and they also need more troops. So people need to come and join, and they also need more food and provisions. So what happens is, David, he is asked, or he's sent by his father to go to his older brothers and bring something to eat, some bread and some cheese. When he arrives there, in this moment, he sees Goliath. He's speaking again against the Israelite army, and nobody dares to speak up against Goliath. Nobody dares to fight against Goliath. And David, he cannot understand this. How can you all be silent? How can you just listen and let this man say all these things? So what happens at the end is, David, he volunteers to fight against Goliath. Now the reaction of Saul is found in verse 33. You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a boy, and he has been a fighting man from his youth. What Saul sees is David, a little boy, early teens, maybe 15 years old. We don't know. But he knows one thing. This little boy is no match against Goliath. Goliath, he was a warrior, and he knows how to kill people. That's his job. He did this his whole life. Whoever would look at these two would say, okay, that's not a match. That's not a fight at all. This is a slaughter, a manslaughter. This is going to be very bad. I would compare it a little bit like me fighting against Caden. Yeah. Kind of unfair, very unfair. Yeah. I saw before the service, Dawn was arm wrestling with Caden, and Dawn lost. So, yeah. But we see it's a very unfair fight. The odds are very bad for David. But David, he doesn't give up. We see what he says in verses 34 through 36. Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. David is talking about himself. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. Now when we read this, these are not the words of a little boy. These are the words of a young man who knows how to protect sheep, someone who's able to defend himself. Someone who's able, or who knows how to approach an enemy who's stronger and more powerful than himself. David, he was not shaken by the size or the strength of Goliath. He was well experienced, and he was able to face such a big opponent. More than that, he goes out in the name of God. He goes out with a faith, with a belief that God will protect him. Verse 37, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. So Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. Now Saul is also convinced, well, he has no other chance, or no other choice. David is the only one who wants to fight Goliath, and someone has to go there. The destiny of the whole Israel that's now in the hands of this young man, of David. And there was nothing for him left to do than to pray. Prayer is now everything that Saul could do. Well, he does something else. He dresses David in his coat of armor, and he gives him a bronze helmet and a sword. But all these things, they hinder David. You know, they're too big for David. So David, he refuses all of this. He says, okay, I don't need this. I don't need a helmet because I need a clear vision. I need to see. I don't need armor because I need to be moving. I need my speed, my agility. I don't need a sword because I will not fight Goliath on a sword base. Okay, now let's take a closer look on David and Goliath. So I made a short list of Goliath and of David. Now first, Goliath, his physical appearance. He was 9 feet tall. 9 feet is really, really tall. It's taller than Shaquille O'Neal or Yao Ming or the other basketball players. He was a giant. Giant, very strong, muscles everywhere. His weapons, offensive weapons, were 3. He had a javelin, a spear, and a sword. Now what's the difference between a javelin and a spear? A javelin is lighter than a spear. It's used to be thrown. You can throw it faster and farther than a spear. A spear then is used to stab or to thrust people in close combat. And then a sword also. His defense is he has a bronze helmet, so it's leather with bronze around it. So it's only the little part of the face that is open, so that he still has vision. Then he has a coat of scale armor that protects him from projectiles like arrows or other things. And his arms and legs were also protected by armor. He also has a shield bearer before him, walking before him. And the past of Goliath is he was born as a warrior. He had many battles, he won many battles, and he worked his rank up. So it took some time until he became the leader or the champion. Very well experienced. His advantage is his physical power. His physical power was second to none. He would win any fist fight or any sword fight. His strategy is made up of 3 steps. First one is stay behind the shield bearer and throw the javelin. And everything that comes to him is protected by the shield bearer. So he stays behind the shield bearer first, and in the first moments. Second step is then move forward to the opponent slowly with the shield barrier in front of him. So until everything, all the projectiles are exchanged. And then if they're close enough, then engage the opponent in close combat. And number 3 is it's not a long fight. He's not there for a long sword fight that we see in movies. It will be short. 1 or 2 strikes and the enemy is down. He's not there to pick up a long fight. Now let's take a look at David. His physical appearance, about 5 feet tall, is young, but he's fast. His offensive weapon, he has a staff and a sling and 5 smooth stones that he had picked from a river. Smooth stones because you can very much anticipate where they will be flying, because very aerodynamic. So he can aim very well with smooth stones. His defense is non-existent. He has basically his light clothes, and that's his defense. The past of David is he is a shepherd, and he has experience fighting and protecting the sheep and fighting against beasts and other animals like lions and bears. His advantage is speed, agility. That's his big advantage, and his weapon is a mid-range weapon. His strategy is also made up of 3 steps. First one is dodge the javelin. Everything that comes towards him, he has to dodge it somehow. Second step is stay at a distance of between 10 and 20 meters. So that's his perfect range. And number 3 is try to hit the opponent at a place that is not protected. That's usually the face. Most important, avoid close combat. Avoid a sword fight by all means. The reason why David was not without a chance is because he decided not to play with the rules of Goliath. He decided not to go to a fight, close fight. He wanted to avoid a fight with Goliath directly. The weakness of David is his physical strength. He would be too weak to fight against Goliath directly. Goliath, on the other hand, he has some weaknesses too, and you probably won't know this. The first weakness is he probably had bad eyes. Now why should he have bad eyes? Okay, what we know is he was tall, very tall, much taller than any person at that time. And that was probably because he had a genetical disorder, and that's called acromegaly. Acromegaly. Now, these people with this genetic disorder, they grow very large, up to 8 feet. But they also suffer from double vision and from severe nearsightedness. So they can't see far, and they probably have double vision too. Now we see something in verse 43. He says to David, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" Now that's interesting, because David, he had one staff, that means one stick, and he had one sling. In Goliath, he saw that sling as a stick. Then it goes on, verse 44, "Come here, and I give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field." When he says come here, it's not only, okay, come here to fight, it is come closer, because Goliath needed David to come closer so that he could see him clearly. The second weakness of Goliath is he underestimated David. Now, as mentioned before, he didn't see the sling, he saw two sticks. Now a sling is a leather pouch connected or attached with two cords, and you can swing that with a very high speed, and there's a projectile inside, a rock or something, and that goes out with a very high velocity. Today it would be comparable to a handgun. David did not come without a toy. That was a real weapon. Now Goliath, he didn't see that. He saw two sticks, and that's why he underestimated David. With two sticks, David would just be able to beat a dog, but not be able to beat Goliath. He didn't see the sling. He didn't see what David was capable of. He underestimated David. And number three is he lost his temper. Goliath, he was used to fight against formidable enemies, against another soldier. Now, a soldier who would be kind of equal in strength and in weapons. Now what he sees now is a shepherd, a boy with sticks. And that's an affront. That's insulting him. That's like dishonoring him. It's like, okay, I'm a soldier and I won't, and he comes, or what they sent is a shepherd. So what he does is he actually leaves his strategy. He changed his strategy. He's full of anger, and so he moves towards David. Now we don't read it here directly, but he probably moves forward to face David without his shield bearer. So he goes directly to David just with a sword to take him down. And that's the momentum where David David was waiting for. So he also begins to run. Now, if you have two moving opponents and one of them is running, you always have to adjust your defense somehow. And if you're not fast enough, especially if your eyes are not good enough, you might be a little too slow, and there might be gaps in your defense. And that's exactly what David was waiting for. So what he does, he runs, he swings at the same time, and as soon as he sees the gap, the stone flies and hits the Goliath at the only place where Goliath would be injured and wounded. David used the only weak point of Goliath, and he managed to hit him right in his forehead. Of course, there's a lot of luck, but it's also a lot of ability. But more than that, it's God's help, God's hand that was behind that, God's power that was behind that stone that finally killed Goliath. Let's also take a look at the differences in personalities of David and Goliath. The first difference is we have experience against passion. The experience of Goliath was like, okay, I can handle this. I have handled this before, and I'm strong enough to beat this boy. David, on the other hand, he didn't have this kind of experience, but he had passion. He was there, and he was willing to fight. This passion is something that was with David throughout his whole life. The second difference is pride versus humility. Goliath, he was full of pride. He said, okay, I am the champion. I can handle this. I can do everything by myself. David, he knows he can't do anything by himself, but he can do everything with the help of God. By God, he can do everything. That's humility. David knew that his life was in the hand of God, and that he had to entrust his life to God. And in the name of God, he came out. That's humility. Number 3 is different kind of faith. Goliath, he believed in his weapons, in his weaponry, in his offense and his defense, his armor and everything. He believed that this would protect him. David, he believed in God, that God would protect him. It's a different kind of faith that they have. And we see this, the faith of David in verse 45. You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Now, my question for you this morning is, where do you put in your faith? What do you believe in? Maybe your education, or your money, your bank account, maybe your friends, or maybe your boss. Maybe your boss promised you something and you just believe in that. Or maybe it's your intelligence. You say, okay, I can handle this, I know what to do. Or maybe it's your experience. I had this before, it's not that bad, I can handle this. But you know, all these things, they are very elusive. They are temporary. It might go well, but it also might lead to a big fall. Now we can learn 3 things from David. The first one is passion. To have passion in your heart. Without passion, there's actually, your life is not really, you're not really living. Without passion, you're just indifferent to everything. And without passion, you don't actually have a reason to live. If you have no reason to die for, you don't have a reason to live. Your passion is what drives you, what keeps you going, what makes you step out to leave your comfort zone and then to grow, to become more a person that God wants you to be. If you have a lack of passion, you have to work on this. Now, how do you do this? Look at Jesus and his passion for you. How much he was willing to suffer just to be with you, to save you, to make you his friend, to reconcile you with God. The passion of Jesus is the source of our passion, whatever we do. If you lack passion, you have to come back. Come back to the cross. Kneel before the cross. Pray to God. And remember what Jesus has done for you. Number 2 is humility. You have to learn to be humble. As David learned to be humble before God, as he accepted that his life is no longer his, but he basically said, my life now belongs to God. I am nothing without God. But with God, I'm everything. I can do anything. It's the same that Paul later testified in Philippians 4. I can do everything through him who strengthens me. It's that humility that makes people great. That allows people to do great things, to go beyond their limits. Humble yourself before God and entrust your life into God's hands, and He will use you for His glory. And number 3 is put your faith in God. David, he faced Goliath, and he did this by faith. Now, how do you put your faith in God? That is by action. You have to live out your faith. That's how you put your faith to God. And then you will see that all difficulties and all the obstacles in your life are actually opportunities to testify who God is and that God is alive. And we can see this also in verse 46. David says, "This day the Lord will hand you over to me, and I strike you down and cut off your head. Today I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel." That was the kind of faith that David had. It's a little brutal, I know. But you see how much David believed that God would give victory. And it's not only to say, okay, yeah, God, I believe you. Okay, I believe you and that's it. It's really to live out. Faith and action, they go together. If you don't know how to live it out, then start serving. If you start serving by faith, serving others, being involved, being part of the English ministry or of other parts, there are so many opportunities, so many places where you are needed. If you put in your talents and everything you have to something with passion, with faith, and with humbleness, with humility, then you will see great things happening. If you start to do what's possible and go beyond that, then the impossible will become reality. And that's exactly what happened when David faced Goliath. And it's also okay to make mistakes. If you step out, of course you will make mistakes. But that's how you expand your abilities, your boundaries. That's how you step out and get out of your comfort zone. You have to make mistakes, but by this you will grow. If you stay humble, stay by faith, and if you serve others, then you will grow through that. God will work through you. And that's the hope, that's the passion that we have. Okay, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this testimony of David that we can read. David facing Goliath. And he faced Goliath with a heart that was full of passion, a passion for your name. And he steps out by faith, with humbleness, knowing that everything is in your hands, that his life does not belong to him anymore. He's there to fight Goliath, the opponent. And he knows that you are with him. And he knows that in him, in you, he has victory. And we also want to go out and live with a passion for your name, with a passion for something that's worthy to live for, to die for. May you give us humbleness and humility to be used by you in a way that glorifies you, to serve others in love. And may you also help us to put our trust, our faith in you, to live out what we believe. May our faith be not dead, but alive. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
The ushers may come forward. During worship night last night, we had the chance to experience a different song, and I wanted to share this again this morning with the English ministry. This is a song called Face of Love by Sanctus Real. And some of you might know the song, might have been new from yesterday. But I wanted to just encourage you to look at these pictures, to look at what Jesus is and his whole life that's here. As I sing this song, I pray that it stirs you to consider him in a new way. I've seen your face on stained glass and colored lights and pictures of you looking to the sky. You've been portrayed 1,000